It's time for episode 306 of the 3 Point Podcast, presented by the Memorial Healthcare Wellness Center. Check out memorialhealthcare.org for details on everything they offer, including kids swimming lessons. Also, our other great partners include AZee Branding Solutions, Jacobs Insurance Agency, Kori Shook & Associates Real Estate Services, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing also on board. Well, let's start off right here. February usually is the month of Valentine's and love, but love was in the air at spring break, wasn't it, Jared?
Yeah, it was. So my brother proposed, my brother Johnny, and his now fiance Lauren said yes. So, and what's funny is that this, my cousin Casey and Katie proposed as well. So there's love in the air around the whole entire family, really. Yeah, it was. This, Ted, from knowing him. We've had him on the podcast before, Ted. It wouldn't show on the podcast, but with stuff like that, he kind of flies by the seat of his pants, to say the least. So you didn't even. At one point, I was holding the ring, and so we were we were about to go out to eat. Next thing I know, he's like, "Go grab the ring." So now I'm in charge of it. And if you know anything about our relationship or my older brother's relationship to me, I wanted nothing to do with it because I know if that proposal didn't go entirely perfect, somehow
it'd be all your fault.
Back on me, and it would have been my fault. So I was holding the ring for a while. I handed it to him about 3 hours before he was supposed to actually do it. We were supposed to do it at the sunset. He's the idiot who scheduled a reservation. So we were at a bar getting a drink. Basically, we were supposed to go from the bar, make a quick stop at the beach for the sunset, and then go to this nice dinner afterward. Right. He put our name in for a reservation. Next thing you know, Lauren, who ended up getting proposed to, said while we're bar. So it's like, well, why don't we just go to the beach for a second when this table it just didn't work. So the ring is changing hands, it's pulling from everybody. Finally, when we're, after that dinner, it's, now it's nighttime at the beach. I think he just was like, I just got to get this damn thing over with, which I'm thankful for. As soon as my mom caught wind of it, it was like chaos. And she was going to probably spill the beans at some point. At one point when all this happened where he was about to propose, we couldn't get to the beach, couldn't trick her to get to the beach without it seeming obvious. My mom sat down and goes, wow, this has just been an absolutely crazy couple hours. Like just basically saying essentially, you were about to get proposed to, you just have no idea. And Lauren said something like, whoa, what's been so crazy? So I'm glad it ended up being done because if it would have gone a couple more days, it definitely would have got spoiled. But it was kind of nerve-wracking. Holding that ring, I was like checking my pocket every 2 seconds, making sure I had it, making sure it didn't get lost. But yeah, it turned out it was cool.
So you obviously knew. Like, did the whole family know he was going to do this, or was it?
Yeah, everybody but her. So
everybody but her. Yeah, I was going to say, like, if he sprung that at everyone, it could have got really awkward. Like your mom and dad could have been like, why are you trying to go to the beach? Like, what are we trying to do here? But it's good that he had everyone on board. My second question was going to be, or I get not really a question, comment, I guess.
Yeah.
That's one of those situations. It's like when you see the proposal at a baseball game or whatever, he must have been pretty confident that she was going to say yes. They're they're going to get married. They're in a good spot. They've been together for a while. He's pretty confident. Because if it was like on the edge, I don't know what she's going to say. That could make a really bad spring break trip. If she would have said no, it would have been like, so are you flying back or like, what are we doing here?
The car ride in, 5 deep in a Blazer it was already horrible on the way down, which I'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, it was, it was kind of funny. Everybody, it's always weird to me. Like, I don't get why you'd be nervous for it. But it seems to be nervous. I know we were nervous when you had to do it. He was nervous. I could tell. And that's I was like, dude, he's going to give this away. He was acting so weird for 2 hours leading up to it at the dinner. You could tell he was like kind of procrastinating it, like just had to pull the trigger and do it. And so I'm glad he did it. And it worked out. It was very nice. We decorated the Airbnb, so they got surprised when they came back from having a couple of drinks. So yeah, it turned out well.
It is a nerve-wracking deal. I'll tell you that too. Even at my age, when I did it the second time around, I was nerved up.
You procrastinated it famously.
I did. I basically choked on the first place I was going to do it at.
Yeah.
I was gonna do it up at Petoskey, overlooking the bay, and it was a perfect setup, and I just completely choked out.
Yeah.
I didn't do it till I got back into town. It was the same day.
And it was kind of the same thing where you're probably like, I just got to get this freaking thing over with. I can't. I got to do it. Just got to do it.
Exactly. I do want to set the stage a
congrats
little
to
bit.
Johnny.
Yeah,
Congrats to
exactly.
Johnny
Johnny,
and,
the
that's
head
cool stuff.
basketball coach at Freeland, Casey, a teacher at Corona. We didn't even talk about that one yet. We did a little bit. He proposed to his girlfriend and now fiance Katie, and I think where were they at? Like Gulf Shores area?
Yeah, I believe Gulf Shores looked like the sunset, proposal.
Yes.
I saw a couple pictures of that. She's a big Taylor Swift fan, so I thought it was funny. I think it was either a mug or a T-shirt that said "I'm in my engagement era" or something like that. that was very fitting. But real quick, I want to talk about the drive down.
Oh yeah.
So we were 5 deep in Blazer, man. I every time I make that drive, it's probably the third or fourth time I've done it. I swear I'll never do it again.
It's a long drive.
It's horrible. It's horrible. I'm lucky I get to fly back. But good Lord, it's terrible. But one thing I thought that was very cool that I had never noticed on my drives to Florida before, man, like the Kentucky, Tennessee area with the rolling hills and like kind of mountains, man, it's beautiful.
It is.
Makes you want a vacation there or something. That was the highlight of the trip, or at least makes me want to come back in the fall time and see what that would look like when all the leaves are changing. That was kind of what blew my mind. For 2-3 hours, that kept me entertained on the way down. But other than that, man, I was in hell. I can't sleep in cars. So every time I do it, it's like torturing myself. It's like going 48 hours without sleeping every time. So, but we finally made it. I only got 2 more days left until I'm back, believe it or not. So I don't want to think about that. But yeah, it's been awesome down here.
It's a long drive, especially, Blazers, nice cars, of course, but you guys are all 5 adults. It's not like you're little kids that can curl up and, it is tough to get comfortable on a 20-hour car ride or whatever it is. So that's always the worst part. I've always been able to sleep pretty easily in airplanes or in cars, just do the whole lean over and kind of conk out a little bit.
Yeah, I can definitely do it in airplanes. I can't do it in the car very well when my wife drives because, man, she's jerking that wheel all over the place.
Oh, boy, here we go. Oh, I got to ask on the ride down. I'm trying to think like what path you went. The famous question for Michiganders, which I mentioned to Ted. It's really funny. Before we started recording, I think everyone in Michigan except for Ted is in Florida right now or somewhere south because all my friends on Facebook, it seemed like I started seeing stories or pictures like heading south and they're all in Florida. It's just kind of, it's
funny everywhere you turn. Like we were at the spring training Tigers game, which real quick, I'll say, wow, what a stadium. Apparently it's like the best spring training stadium, like 6 or 7 years running. That was a sweet setup. Yeah. And, we televised TV games from there, but you just don't get the sense of what that place looks like. I was really blown away. It was packed, unbelievably packed. It was hot, but Tigers got the win, but man, it was packed. But I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. What re-tee me up, Matt? What was that?
Yeah. No, so then I was going to ask, did you guys stop at a Buc-ee's?
Oh, no. Honestly, I don't think I saw a Buc-ee's, to be honest. I saw a lot of
I'm trying to think of your path. You may not have went by one.
I would have thought they'd go 75. Did you take 75 to Tampa, right?
Yeah. So I'm sure we passed one. I don't.
Maybe.
We stopped at a Waffle House at about 4 a.m. and had a creepy kind of meal there. Actually, not half bad, but yeah. We didn't see a Buc-ee's. I've heard a lot of kind of myths and legends about those places. They look awesome. I saw a mega Wawa that was huge, and I love. That's one of those things. Every time you see it, you say Wawa. It's a great name. No, I didn't see a Buc-ee's. That's the White Castle. I've never quite been there.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you go by one, it's one of those things. Like, I mean, first of all, they're actually legit. Excuse me, but if you go by one, it's almost like you have to stop to say that you've gone, to say that you've been to one, check it out or whatever. But I wasn't sure if you had that experience.
Now I remember what my thought process was with what you said originally. Yeah, dude, there are people from Michigan everywhere.
Oh,
we saw at the Tigers game, we saw teachers from Corona. You're walking around. We went to Busch Gardens a couple of days ago. You see people wearing Saginaw Valley shirts. You're walking down the beach. You hear kids apparently from Grand Blanc High School talking about that. Like you see Michigan championship shirts everywhere. Tigers gear everywhere. It really is literally like mini Michigan for a week. It is kind of funny and cool.
Especially because I know. Sorry to cut you off, Ted. No. I saw my family, up there. So on spring break right now. that this past Friday, I mean, you guys know, you guys got a ton of snow. So it, like extended spring break because they had snow days going into their spring break. And so I showed like, they sent some pictures. I showed like Claire, my daughter and stuff.
Right.
And it was like, they're on spring break right now. And look they're under snow. And she was like, what?
That's one of those things when
like,
you kind of snicker to yourself and laugh and think, well, look at those suckers back in Michigan.
Oh, no kidding. Amy, my daughter and her two daughters came to take their spring break here to visit with us. So Friday night, that was the day they canceled school, and we had to drive to the airport to pick them up, man. It was treacherous. It was all gone the next day, but it was pretty wild to start spring break.
They're like, they're the one people on the flight heading to Michigan for spring break. Everyone else is going south. Everyone at the airport's like, wait, what? You're going to Michigan for spring break? Okay.
No doubt.
One last little catch-up thing that we can get on to, March Madness.
Yeah.
Unless you guys have other things, obviously. But when I was at the Tigers game, and there's video of it somewhere, maybe I'll send it to you guys for 3 Point Podcast posting at some point when I find it. So at the Tigers game, there is a statue of Ty Cobb standing. Ted, do you know this? Do you know what this is?
Oh, yeah. Your dad shared the video with us.
Oh,
so go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I thought maybe this is like something that back in the 30 years ago when you went to spring training, it was there.
No.
So there's a statue of Ty Cobb, and it's like, man, it's a great looking statue, perfectly like bronze,
gold, right? Bronze
gold
or whatever.
statue. And my dad's like, hey, why don't you and your brother take a picture next to it? I just said it, like, I just went along with it. They've been wanting a picture every 3 seconds. So it's just like, all right, I'll just go take a picture next to this damn thing. So me and my brother stand next to it. Next thing I know, it like jumps out and scares me. Scares the absolute shit out of me.
Okay.
Now smile.
It was the actual human that was posing as a statue. It was the best acting ability I've probably ever seen. I've never been scared like that. It was like textbook, like perfectly executed. I thought it was a legit statue. Next thing I know, he's jumping out, scaring the absolute crap out of me. So those are cool. I've always wondered who gets fooled by those damn things. Now I know. It looked exactly like a statue. I just can't believe how well it looked. So if you ever want to go to a spring training game, I know that it's probably gonna be not till next spring break for a lot of people, but that's a great gag right behind home plate, right in the concourse, that I would definitely pull on somebody in your group.
So you're okay if we share that on our Twitter feed?
Yeah, I'll have to track it down. I guess you have it already.
No, I got it.
I haven't seen the video.
I can send it out.
I haven't seen the video, to be honest, but
it's funny. It's funny.
Maybe I'll have to preview it first, but I'm sure that's no problem.
Yeah,
no, you're not that bad.
We're definitely going to need that. We're going to need to share that on the socials.
Yeah,
your dad got videos, out of it.
Yeah, you see them on TikTok or whatever. People getting fooled by those, and you always think what you just said. Oh, I wouldn't think that that's a real statue, or no, that wouldn't get me. It's impressive. I remember as a kid, we were like middle school. We went out west, and in San Francisco, there were a couple of those. So this is a long time ago. Technology and makeup and stuff has come a long way since then. But I remember a couple people were doing that. They look like statues, and then they would like kind of scare people as they walked by. And I thought it was like hilarious. And it's funny to think that it's still going. But
Matt, have you ever been to I know Ted, I know you went to Busch Gardens like 30 years ago. Matt, have you ever been there? I know you usually go to Disney, so there's not really much of a need probably to journey that way, but
yeah, not to Busch Gardens. I've been by one, but it's basically a theme park, right? I mean, it's roller coasters and stuff like that, right?
To me, it was honestly more so like like a zoo on steroids. It's kind of how I would describe it. Like there was probably, 7, which I went on a roller coaster, thought I was going to puke. I think I'm officially over roller coasters. I used to ride them all the time when I was a kid. I think I've officially passed that part of my life. But no, there's like probably 7 or 8 like legit roller coasters you see at Cedar Point. The rest is like you're just like kind of walking through a giant like zoo. There's a sweet safari that you kind of take a train through, giraffes and zebras and wildebeest and all these other animals kind of running wild. There's alligators. It was cool. It was definitely worth the price of admission. I'm normally not a big zoo guy, but this was kind of sweet how they did it, where a lot of these enclosures were honestly like, you always feel bad for the animals, but a lot of the enclosures were honestly like pretty sweet. And I was like, that's actually not really that bad of a setup for these animals. And they had literally like almost like a wide open, probably 3 or 4 miles wide, like open area for, a vast majority of the animals to roam around. And you have a nice, sweet overlooking deck like overlooking all the giraffes eating out of these trees and stuff. So if you're in the Tampa area, I definitely recommend Busch Gardens for a day trip. It was the best zoo I've been to. It was very cool. And there's roller coasters as well, so you can't beat that.
Well, it sounds like so far so good on your trip. Spring, you got what, a couple days left, and you fly up to DC. You didn't mention last week though. Part of the Benny, you get to fly home on the Pistons plane, right?
Yeah,
is that correct?
Well, it'll be flying private. So
yeah,
I've never done that. I'm a little bit scared of what that plane will be like. I don't know what that. I've just never flown. I think it's a smaller plane, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. You know, a lot of work to be done in a role I haven't really done that much. So got to get through the obvious like business part of it, and then you can appreciate all the rest of it. So I haven't really appreciated all that kind of other stuff that goes along with it. I will probably, come a week or maybe on that flight home, but got to get a lot of work done before then. So.
Right. Well, we'll be watching. All right, let's move on from this and talk a little March Madness right after this. All right, guys, just ironically enough, I was looking at Twitter this morning, and, we're recording this on Tuesday, the 26th of March. 45 years ago today was the famous Michigan State, Indiana State, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson game. I mean, 45 years. I mean, and that really kind of set the stage for March Madness. It's all been just steamrolling since then. And still, when you look at the TV ratings, I know things have changed, but they had like 30 million people watch that game compared to, I think, national championship games nowadays average around 14 million.
Right.
So
I know that game always comes up as like the game that everyone watched.
Mm-hmm.
You think about the Super Bowl or other certain events where you think like everyone is watching this one sporting event. That one always comes up as like that night, everyone was watching that game. And it's crazy to think about. Obviously, like you said, a lot more options now, a lot more ways to watch, a lot more things to watch. There really wasn't much else to watch back then. That was what you were going to watch that night, but rightfully so, because it was a historic game. Crazy to think 45 years ago, though.
What I always think is funny is that game wasn't even that good of a game. It's talk about the greatest game ever played. It's like a 15-point blowout. It's like wasn't even that good of a game. Was it even ever close? I know Larry Bird. That's like the one thing. Like it still like irritates him to this day. Like he wishes he could have won that game. Like that's the one game he'll never get back. But it's crazy to think 45 years ago. The thing that's kind of nice to see, and I love it, is a lot of those classic warm-ups that both those teams wore in that era. They're making their comeback. North Arlington in the championship game for high schools wearing it. I'm positive within the next 5 years that's going to be like the new normal. Are those collared warm-up shirts, and I can't wait for them. I love them.
I can't wait for like seeing pictures back 20 years ago when my era playing was everything was insanely baggy, and like looking back at pictures, not even of like me playing college basketball or even the NBA or whatever, it's almost funny to see you talking about trends coming back with warm-ups. Like stuff was so huge. Our shooting shirts, when we warm up, the sleeves were like down to here. Shirt basically like down to our knees. And the warm up, it was cool back then, the tearaway pants with the buttons all down the sides. It was so cool to have the tearaway pants. Even those were like 4 sizes too big for us. So I'm curious if that trend will come back. The huge baggy everything.
I think that is like your era, honestly. Like I look at what Ted's era would have wore like in the 70s, and it's like almost like it's like not really that bad.
Yeah.
But then when you look at yours, like the 2000s, it's like, what the hell were they wearing? So I don't know, man. Maybe it will come back. I just don't think it will. I really think it'll be the forgotten style, in hoops lore. It'll be like when you see like the old White Sox uniforms with like the baseball shorts. That's going to be how we look back on those baggy uniforms. Just like they weren't comfortable. They weren't not probable. They weren't practical. So I think those are the things that are lost in time.
Well, like I remember some dudes would like if they had super baggy shorts, they'd go to dribble between their legs and the ball would get caught in their shorts.
Right.
So it's like you said, the practicality of it was like, they're really not practical because you can't even like run properly or your pants are falling down because they're so baggy.
Yeah, like do you ever wear baggy shorts? Like it's not even like you can't function wearing them. Like how did you guys play in them? People will do anything to look cool. It's kind of crazy. That's what looking cool was back in the day. It's hilarious, man. It's just I'm glad that's a trend that we've phased out.
We would go to, I'm pretty sure your dad would get mad at us because we would go pick out our shorts, either before practice or before games.
Season,
And we would try, so I wore number
Stretch
20.
them
And
out.
usually what they would do, the lower numbers were smaller sizes. Higher numbers were higher sizes. We'd all go try and grab number 54. And we'd want to grab the higher ones because we wanted the most baggy shorts we could get. I'm pretty sure your dad would be yell at us, man, grab the right shorts. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Anyway, sidetrack. Yeah, March Madness. So
yeah, what are we thinking?
Ed's
I mean,
MSU Spartans.
Spartans got a win, but then came down to reality, didn't they?
If I'm State, man, I don't I looked up at the score. It's kind of funny. It was a tale of two viewings for me. I left the bar. They were up 10. All of a sudden I get back to the Airbnb. They're down by 15. The game's over. It's what the hell just happened? If I'm them, man, it was a solid season. I did love what Izzo said. He basically stole right out of Jim Harbaugh's playbook. After the game, I'm gonna make a deep run in this tournament, or I'm gonna die trying.
Mm-hmm.
Just a depressing season. I was wrong on them. I had them in the Final Four. Just outmatched at every position. It kind of seemed like in that North Carolina game. It's time to move on. It's time to move on from this group. It's been one Sweet 16. Haven't really accomplished that a whole lot in the last few years for Michigan State basketball. I know AJ Hoggard and Matty Sissoko can come back. If I'm a State fan, I'm just ready to Bob Seger turn the page. It's I know that they'll be nice pieces and they're good players, but it's I'm just ready for something new. I'm not even a State fan. As somebody who casually watches them probably 10 games a year, I'm just ready for a new regime. I've seen this regime. They're boring. They're not that good. They have had some moments. The Kansas State game, an all-time great game. Wish they would have won it, man. They probably should have won that damn game, and we'd be looking at them totally different. They're probably a Final Four team. But good Lord, it's just time to move on.
Yeah.
I know Hoggard's a good player. I know he can come back. I know Sissoko, same exact thing. I don't expect them to accept a lesser role next year. So it's just time to turn the keys over to somebody else. That's where I'm at with Michigan State in this program.
Yeah, they need to, because you could see, they came out and they were hot. They came out swinging. They were up 15 or whatever at one point, and it was holy crap, they're about to pull this upset. And then, they kind of came crashing back down to earth. UNC kind of woke up. They actually started using Armando Bacot down low, and RJ Davis kind of had a pretty good game, and a couple other guys were knocking down threes. But I still feel like it's Michigan State. I feel like if they would have played a little better defensively, I think they could have hung with UNC, because you can see they have the talent. Tyson Walker is good, and they have some other guys that can play. Could they have beaten UNC? Maybe not, because UNC might go on and win it all. They're really good.
They're good.
They have a tough game. They play Alabama this upcoming weekend. That'll be a really good game. But no, UNC is good. But MSU, it's just they seem to just keep. They don't have a Cassius Winston type of guy. They don't have a Denzel Valentine, Draymond Green. They don't, even all the way back to Drew Neitzel. They don't have a guy like that. Tyson Walker is good, probably be in the NBA, probably, play professionally, all that. But it's weird to see a Tom Izzo team without a guy like Cassius Winston, without a guy like that, because he always has someone like that as a Michigan fan is just super annoying, because it's or even Matt McQuaid. Remember when he was there, and he would always come up with big shot after big shot, and you'd be like, who the hell is this guy? And they just, like you said, this current group of guys, they don't have that. So, everyone, you see a lot of Michigan State fans out on Izzo. You see, I don't think they should go that far yet. He is 70, so he is. Last week we were saying John Beeline's too old at 71 to go back to Michigan. Well, Tom Izzo's right there. So is he starting to creep up to that age of man, are you just kind of, has the game passed you by? We've talked about the portal. He clearly needs to do something there. I don't know. He go back to the drawing board, is what you hear, whether it's finding different recruits, hitting the portal. He doesn't have to hear me say anything, but something needs to change, because clearly it's not working. They keep getting these preseason top 5 rankings, and then they flame out. So
yeah, I always really like Tyson Walker. That's a player. If I'm a State fan, I'm man, I'm sad to see him go. He had kind of that dog in him, as they say. If I'm Izzo, is kind of in a similar boat. I think not quite as bad as Calipari, but where they kind of got to figure some things out this offseason. Go back to the drawing board. Go back to their roots. Hit the reset button and really rededicate themselves to getting this team over the hump, getting them back to where they were. They maybe lost their edge a little bit. Again, that's what I kind of felt about the state team. It's like you're throwing out all these guys they've always had, Matt, and it's like, yeah, they don't have those guys. Walker tried his best to be that guy for him, but he just wasn't quite that player. I have one solution for them that I think really would work. Trey Townsend, 1 year eligibility left. If you're Tom Izzo, I mean, what the hell are you doing? Go get that guy from Oakland.
Good call.
Oakland.
Yeah.
It's
why not? The kid can play, man.
It really. I'll just say this: can freaking play. I'll just say this, and I'll say the same. We'll talk about Dusty May. Dusty May, go get this guy. Same exact thing for him, man. Oakland saved that first round. They saved this opening weekend. They really did. It was a dud of an opening weekend. Yeah. I know I'm going to be a jerk for saying that, and people are going to get mad at me. Like I saw some tweets say, "Oh, if you have that opinion, you just don't like good basketball." If that's your opinion, I like close games. I don't necessarily care if the underdog wins. 23 of the 32 first round games were double-digit wins.
Right.
We never really had a buzzer beater. Texas A&M had a shot that sent it to overtime. We had a couple really good games. Creighton game against Oregon was awesome, but it was just a dud of a first weekend. It really was. Oakland was the story of the first round, and really the entire first weekend. Their two games, in my opinion, were the two best games of the weekend. I wish I would have stuck to my damn gut. It's like Kentucky is like my Achilles heel.
Yeah.
Every year they break my bracket. It's funny. You see like the graphic that's like Coach Cal and Kentucky struggles the last 5 years. You could essentially put my name on there and change it to bracket, and it'd be the same thing. They've killed me every goddamn year. I haven't made it out of the first weekend in like 4 years on this damn bracket because they're my champion and they lose every year. They looked horrible, but Oakland, what a fun team. I retweeted it, but I remember back in February, Campy posted a picture of them all at like a team dinner where they were all sitting there laughing with each other, no phones. It looked like it was like a Italian family having Sunday dinner, the way they were interacting with each other. You said it, Townsend, stud. And the players around me, Golke, obviously, could shoot the lights out, and he did that. What a great post-game interview that was after the Kentucky game. But if I'm them, and we can appreciate all the fun stuff, that last 12 seconds of that NC State game in the round of 32.
Yeah, they blew it.
Mm-hmm. He's a great coach. I don't want to crap on him. He did a great job getting this team here. I mean, I made the comment, if Juwan Howard had the same exact team, they probably don't win 10 games. But what the hell was that? 12 seconds left. Oakland has NC State on the run. They're backpedaling. He calls a timeout, which, okay, I'm a fan of it because I think Campy's going to dial up a good play. I don't know what got lost in translation. Townsend wouldn't even have touched the ball in that final possession until like maybe a second and a half left in the game. It's like, what are we doing? Just dial it up, get him the ball, get out of the way. He was shooting into an ocean that second half. He had 20 plus points. Second half, hitting everything, scoring at will. Just get him the damn ball.
Right.
And then they just didn't have the gas to keep it up in overtime. They missed two big time free throws. Golke missed one, Lampman missed one, and then they had one huge turnover that Campy lost his mind about, and that was all she wrote. It's a bummer because that was what could have put them, from a one Golke shooting performance. Remember that game too. This is a legit team that, hey, they might make a freaking Final Four if they keep this thing rolling. And so I just was really bummed out. That was a game that like really sat with me. I was like, man, that really bummed me out. I love that team so much, and Campy deserved that moment. But man, they're going to be kicking themselves over that last 5 minutes and 12 seconds for the rest of their lives, probably.
Yeah. Golke is obviously the story. He's landing an NIL deal.
Yeah.
You saw he's with TurboTax now. He got a deal with Buffalo Wild Wings. That's the kind of stuff that NIL should be all about. A guy like that gets hot during March Madness, get some money out of it. I think I saw he's pushing to have like a 3-point shooting contest at Final Four or something like that he wants to go do. But no, it was the story. Because, there was, like James Madison pulled an upset. Grand Canyon, we talked about them last week. They pulled an upset, won a game. There were some of those. But, the games overall, and actually a couple buddies and I were texting. We were like, overall, I'm not going to sit here and try and say I watched every single second of every game. But the quality of play just wasn't that great. Like, if you're sitting there, yes, March Madness is fun. There's energy. It's electric. It's on CBS. The announcers are great. Everything, it's cool. But the quality of basketball, just watching it is just kind of like, these guys aren't very good. I mean, like, it's just like turnovers. Sometimes it's slow, a lot of missed shots. Even Golke, the great story. he's like shooting fall away 40-footers every time. And it's like, it's amazing. I love it. But it's also like, this is just like jack it up basketball. He's just getting the ball and throwing it up. And it's a great story, but it is a little bit like the quality of play sometimes. There's not a Larry Bird or a Magic Johnson, and some storylines like that.
Right.
So it's still March Madness. It's awesome. But you say you should have went with your gut on Kentucky last week. I don't know if you guys remember. I should have went with my gut on NC State.
Yeah.
Going in, I was like, they're, like I said, they're riding high after the ACC tournament. But I thought they were going to come up short in the second round. Should have went with my gut, because they're riding that momentum train. And DJ Burns is really good. They got that dude that they can just like dump the ball down to and rely on. And they might make a little bit of a run because they're playing well. So got to stop looking at those chalks. Stop looking at the rankings and think Duke is always going to win, even though they're still there. Kentucky and some of these other teams. It's just go with your gut sometimes on those. I like what Jay Wright said. We retweeted it. I'm sure people have seen it. Jay Wright, after Kentucky lost, kind of along the lines of Tom Izzo needing to go back to the drawing board. Jay Wright was saying, no disrespect to Coach Cal, but kind of the same with him. He got beat by an Oakland team with a bunch of veteran guys. And Coach Cal traditionally, has a bunch of freshmen and sophomores basically playing. And Oakland was just better. You can see Kentucky has 5-6 NBA players, which Oakland does not. But they're a bunch of like kids, 18, 19-year-olds playing against 23, 24-year-olds and, guys who've played a lot of basketball. So it's interesting to think about that, how the game has changed. Legendary coaches like Cal and Izzo getting knocked out early because, the game is different now, stuff like that. It's just kind of crazy.
It's a double-edged sword with the NIL situation. Every school needs to be more on an even playing ground on that. We've talked about that before. And then the transfer portal. It's just that's kind of put a big damper on things too, because it's hard to build a veteran team, because if you're not getting the playing time you want, I'm out of here. I'm moving on, and I don't know what they're going to do. Hopefully it's edging back to what it used to be like. They are talking about it, that these big time programs need to keep these kids in the program. So maybe it's going to end up ultimately being a good thing. I hope. Right. I don't know. I did have one complaint. This is an old man complaint. And I'm retired, so it really shouldn't be a complaint, but their Sunday schedule is ridiculous. I mean, I hate it. I mean, they play the first 3 games. You have no other games going on, so you gotta watch that whole game. You got to go that 30 minutes afterwards before the next game, and then it goes till 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday night. Like I said, to me, I'm old, I'm retired. That's ridiculous on a Sunday. These games should be done by 10.
I'm good with the Saturday schedule being that way.
Me too.
But I agree with you. Sunday night thing, it really does not make that much sense. Obviously, it's TV ratings, West Coast stuff. But what also makes that you really feel it is when those games are duds. Outside of the Marquette game, it felt like both those 4 or 5 to 6 games in those early windows were all duds. And it makes you notice, like, man, this is going slow. I agree. I hate it. They need to put maybe one more game in between the start at noon and the 2:40 game, and just give us 3 instead of the 2 and the 5. Give us 3 and 4, before 7 o'clock. I think that would be a big difference. But I didn't stay up for him. I'm not even your age, Ted. I didn't even stay up for him. I wake up the next day, watch the 15-minute YouTube recap of all the games, and that's kind of what you got to do.
Yeah.
Well, it's always like I remember, seems forever ago at this point, but when Michigan was making a couple of their runs, they had a couple games that were like 9 o'clock tip-offs. Michigan State has too at different times. So like when it's your team, of course, you're going to stay up and watch. And I remember there being times that, Michigan's playing till 1 in the morning. And I'm like, you're like falling asleep. It's like, man, you're excited because it's the NCAA tournament.
Am I remembering it right? Where it was like the Texas Tech game where they got drubbed by like 20 was like a 9:40 start. Yeah. Am I remembering that? Yeah.
Yep. Like, so one of those games, you're staying up till 1 in the morning to watch your team get smoked by 20 points. And you're just like, what am I doing with my life right now? But everyone's my champion, UConn, still in it. Seems to be I don't know. A lot of people are saying, like I saw Mike Greenberg even said he thinks UConn could make the playoffs in the NBA. Everyone's all in on UConn right now, but Maybe it's because of where I live, but I'm wondering if UNC is going to be the team to make the run. You never know what's going to happen after that first weekend. You know, sometimes teams maybe lose a little momentum, but I was going to ask if you guys, well, I guess Jared, you're going to be busy. I'm thinking of the timeline. You're going to go down to Detroit and watch any of the Sweet 16 games? I kind of forgot going into this tournament that they had a Sweet 16 site. You know, they have the Midwest and some pretty good games too. Purdue and Gonzaga. It's a really good game. Creighton, you know, really cool game there. So, but as we were talking, the games are at 7:30 and 10 o'clock on Friday night. So, and they're like $600 tickets.
Purdue will bring a huge crowd. It is a great regional. I mean, Purdue, Gonzaga, Creighton. Oh, Jesus. Purdue tree just got blown over like in hurricane winds out here. Purdue, Gonzaga, Creighton, and Tennessee. It's a great regional. It's going to be cool to see. I don't know. Outside of Pittsburgh, I thought the regional sites were kind of duds opening weekend. They like crowds sucked. And it's funny comparing it to the women's tournament where they play those opening round games at the one seats home building. Home court, and those crowds are great. I think there's something flawed. I don't know if it's locations. I don't know if they should be playing them at home gyms. I love that they have they're on these, you know, kind of neutral sites, but the crowds to me were kind of duds. I think Detroit will bring a pretty solid crowd, and LCA will be kind of cool to see rocking like that for a basketball game, which I haven't really seen that much. Mostly it's been hockey when that place is really kind of jumping. So I don't know. What did you guys think of that? Did you guys think the crowds were kind of disappointing?
A little bit. I mean, the one in Charlotte helped because UNC and was here. So, I mean, that helped a little bit. But I think part of it is, I mean, not to like complain about it, it's the price of stuff. Yeah. I mean, I honestly, I know last week you asked if I was going to go watch those and I was like, no. But Saturday, I was like, man, that'd be really cool to go to. MSU versus UNC is 5:00. Great time. I was like, I'm going to go. And actually a couple of friends who live down here, they were going also. A couple friends that are Michigan State fans from Michigan, they were going. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to try and go. Tickets were like $500, $600, $700. And I'm like, dude, I'm not even a Michigan State fan. I'm not about to spend that kind of money to go uptown and watch that. If they made it a little more affordable, maybe that'd be different. But
I'm right. I'm 100% with you. You know, when you asked the first question about going to the Detroit, Sweet 16, possibly would consider it if State, Oakland, or Michigan were in it, but there is no way I'm shelling out $500 to go down there when I can watch it in the nice comfort of my home, you know, especially being late games. But that's the way it is in today's day and age of sports in general. You know, it's entertainment, and you got to pay that money to go see it if you want to see it live. Before we move away from college basketball, we kind of went over it a little bit, but Dusty May at Michigan seems like a tremendous hire to me. I mean, the timing of it anyway, and the potential and his age and what he brings to the table. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is, I don't know if there was really a home run hire. You know, when Juwan Howard was hired, we thought that was a home run hire for Michigan. I don't know if there really was something like that this offseason for Michigan, especially given where the program is right now. Basically, every player is transferred. There's almost like no one left on the roster. So they needed, in my opinion, a quality coach with experience, with tournament experience, with wins. You know, he turned around. Yes, it's FAU, but they're in the tournament every year. Quality basketball program. He turned them around. They were basically in the dumpster when he went there. Now like I said, they make the tournament every year. So, yeah, I mean, it's a good hire. And apparently, you know, the word is John Beilein was kind of in on the hiring process, like, because Dusty May was going to go to Louisville. And I guess Beilein talked to him, and, you know, I don't know if he convinced or, you know, whatever, him to go to Michigan. So if Beilein was in on the process, I like that. For where Michigan is at, I'm fine with it because, you know, yes, I said, like, we thought Juwan was a home run hire, but he had no college coaching experience, recruiting, all of that, you know, he had never done. Dusty May has that experience. He'll come to Michigan. Like I said, there wasn't like a home run type of hire. Like Nate Oates wasn't going to come back to Michigan, you know, or whatever. So I'm happy with it. We'll see what he can do.
I guess of all the names, I think they got the biggest one. I think.
Right.
So I don't. to me, I guess, yeah, I'm not like, I wasn't jumping up and down like and all around like when Michigan hired Jim Harbaugh, but to me, it was a good hire. It was John Beilein, man. Thank you. Because apparently Ward Manuel was not going to get this freaking thing done, and at least smart enough of Ward Manuel to say, hey, I can't do this. I can't close this deal. Let's go get this guy, and he can do it. Dusty May, I don't know a ton about him, but just like my research, I mean, you take Florida Atlantic to a freaking Final Four. I know it's one run, but pretty freaking impressive.
Oh, absolutely.
He hasn't had a losing season there. First time ever. I think they've had before that, I don't think they had 2 consecutive winning seasons since like the early 90s. So he's a good coach. I like him. He's got a fun play style. He seems to have embraced this new era that we're kind of living in. I mean, if you can build a freaking winning program at FAU through portal and through all these other things, I think he's going to be able to do it at Michigan. I think he's going to hit the ground running. I think it's a solid hire. I'm excited to see what he does. I'm just glad that we're on to greener pastures. I don't think they can be any darker than what we came from. So It should be a day of celebration for really everybody.
Yeah. Well, and in East Lansing, they have the zone. Michigan, they already have the Maze Rage, but now it's going to be spelled a little bit differently, right?
Yeah.
That's cool. Also, guys, I did last night. I've been checking out the women's tournament casually, but I've been really intently watching Iowa, obviously. And as Jared said, when the women right now still are playing the first round games at the home court, man, Iowa and Hawkeye Carver, man, that place was just wild last night. It was a heck of a game.
Yeah, I've seen some people say that, like we're saying, maybe the men's tournament needs to consider this to get better crowds. I've seen some people criticize the women's tournament and say that adds an unfair advantage to
I'm on
Iowa.
that side, by the way.
Right. So I don't know, like you could go either way. You can say like you should be rewarded if you earn the number 1 seed in the tournament. Yeah, go ahead and host. Same with the college football playoff expansion that's coming. They're going to let the early rounds are going to be hosted by the upper seed, I guess. So because they earned that. I don't know. I can see an argument both ways because Iowa at home. I mean, that's a huge home court advantage, especially when you have Caitlin Clark. South Carolina at home, huge home court advantage. So, I can see it both ways. But right now, again, all the way back to full circle, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, the women's game has those kind of matchups right now with, characters, people that you're interested in watching, even with the coaches, all the stuff going on with Kim Mulkey right now. Dawn Staley obviously is a legend. So, people want to watch these games. Yep. They want to see if Caitlin Clark can make that run. They want to see what Angel Reese is going to do. They want to see if, even UConn, people forget about UConn and, that the legendary program that they are with Paige Beckers and just being UConn women's basketball. So they, again, I'm not going to sit here and act like that I watch every single game or whatever, but the storylines, I guess, in the women's game is a little better right now than the men's.
Yeah. And if Iowa and LSU get by their games on Saturday, that's going to set up a pretty nice matchup there in that next game.
I was trying to find the tweet, but I mean, I watched the very end of the Iowa game, and it's like, man, I don't know. Like, I'm not saying that they're cooking, the refs are like cooking the books or whatever, but good Lord. I saw like a stat basically West Virginia committed 27 fouls. Iowa committed 9. LSU had shot 37 free throws, and Middle Tennessee State shot 9. And here's the thing. I have no problem if that's what they're doing. If they're making this a collision course of LSU and Iowa. I said that like 3 or 4 weeks ago, like whatever they have to do to make this matchup happen, they need to do it. And I'm for it. They might be rigging the game in Caitlin Clark's favor to get her to that game, but it's going to be fun to watch. And it actually was a pretty fun, the few games that I did watch, it was a fun weekend. I mean, I saw Stanford versus Iowa State was a fun game that I happened to turn on and watch. So they really are figuring something out with this women's tournament, and it's going to be exciting to see how. One thing I think Caitlin Clark might draw more viewers than any men's game when it happens, but I want to say this upcoming weekend is the games are played on the weekend, basically at the same time as the men's games. Maybe somebody double check that for me, but I don't get that.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Just it makes no sense. Yeah. It's perfect how they have it now. Monday, Tuesday, and watch those games then. I don't understand why you'd want to compete against the men's tournament. It just makes no sense to me.
Well, I mean, I think one part is the women's tournament is on the ESPN family of networks.
Yep.
And obviously the men's is on Turner family of networks. So ESPN wants to try and pull viewers away from Turner, especially with the storylines of Caitlin Clark and LSU and South Carolina and UConn and everyone. They're gonna try and pull people away from the men's tournament. Because I also remember the women's used to be like during the week. The games would be like, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And there was a legitimate, argument or complaint that why are we treating the women's tournament differently? Why are we giving the men's the weekend? And, back then it was before the women's game had really grown to what it is now. So that was kind of the argument. But yeah, I think it's mainly the competing networks just trying to compete with each other.
That's a good point. And this year, like you said, it's like they probably will take more viewership. Caitlin Clark, especially the LSU versus Iowa game, nobody is going to be watching the men's tournament when that goes down. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting dynamic. I see both sides, but to me, it's like I don't. It's like scheduling like college football. It's like if they just said we're going to go head to head with the NFL, I just don't understand it. But I get the point. I get it's obviously who wants to play during the weekdays. Nobody wants to do that, but it just seems like a bit of a missed opportunity. But again, these are two competing networks, two competing products. Like who gives a shit? We're going to try to beat them.
Well, they compromised a little bit because some of the games will be on Monday, right?
Yeah.
They're playing Friday and Saturday. They're Sweet 16. But, hey, it's going to be fun to watch. Caitlin Clark, you just can't stop watching her. And Iowa's got a pretty good team. So it'll be fun to see how it finishes up. A couple other quickies before we move on to the prep spotlight. I don't know if you guys saw any of it. The timing was perfect in the basketball. I flipped it over to the Big Ten hockey championship, Michigan State. It was an overtime. It was exciting, at Munn Arena, and MSU picked up the win 5-4, and they've really turned their program around. They had struggled for quite a long time in hockey, but it looks like they got the right guy and going to the tournament now.
We did an interview because their goalie, who's like their stud, Trey Augustine, is a Detroit Red Wings draft pick. Mm-hmm. And we interviewed their coach, Adam Nightingale, and Trey Augustine, and their assistant coach, Jared D. Michelle, I believe his name is. I don't say this like I say this truthfully. Like I've never been more impressed with like just being around a group of guys, how they treated you, shook your hand, look you in the eye, all that kind of mumbo jumbo that people talk about. Just really impressed with their program and how they treated us when we were at Munn Ice Arena and interviewed them, to the point where I'm like, I'm a fan of Michigan State hockey. I don't give a I'm beat Michigan for all I care. Go win the national title. So they're a really fun story, and it's awesome when you have a very good goalie like him that you just kind of ride. And obviously Nightingale's one hell of a coach, and he clearly got the right guy in Trey Augustine in net. So they're gonna be fun to watch. I'm with you.
Yeah, we've talked about it. We've talked about it before. Sorry, Matt. That when you watch a good hockey game, especially in the NHL, if it's the Stanley Cup playoffs or even this Big Ten championship, when you get overtime hockey, you can't stop watching, man. There's nonstop tension.
Yeah, it's great. I was just trying to look up. I was trying to remember all the teams that made it, because a bunch of Michigan teams made it, and they're in the same bracket. The Frozen Four, it's it's set up a little differently than March Madness. But yeah, I was trying to remember. I was pretty sure. So Michigan State takes on Western Michigan in their opening game. And then the winner of that plays the winner of North Dakota and Michigan. So we might see Michigan State again right away. Or
and Michigan Tech's on that side too.
Right. And then Michigan Tech, it's always funny to think about Michigan Tech being in the same, I guess, division, or the same as Michigan State.
What cracks me up about that, it's awesome. It's like if you were a State fan, like think about Michigan's like this powerhouse hockey program. They are giving Michigan every damn chance to knock off State on this magical dream season. And it's like, if you're State, it's like, good Lord, they're going to beat us the one damn time it really truly matters in the Frozen Four. So they just got to figure out a way to get it done, man. They cannot let that happen. If you're a State hockey fan, you cannot let that game get by you. You got to win that Michigan game. This is the season. I know that it seems like they're really building something here with Nightingale, but good Lord, you got to win that game if they advance out of that first round.
Yeah. Well, it'll be fun to watch for sure. And one final thing, a little bit more Michigan State love. Their gymnastics team won the Big Ten championship. And I mean, that you just got to go, man. That is some good news after the whole Nassar evilness. The gymnastic team now has a Big Ten championship. So Skyla Schutte, the all-around winner, that's good news for the Spartans there. Congrats.
Yep.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, it is. I don't got much to add, but yes.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. How did this come across your timeline?
I have my sources,
Yeah.
And I'm a subscriber to the Lansing State Journal, so I stay on top of things.
All right.
All right, we'll be back. Well, we'll take a short pause, and then we'll be back with the Prep Spotlight presented by Jacobs Insurance Agency right after this. All right, guys, not a lot going on at this time of the season. We're getting ready for spring, and, the basketball just finished up on the girls' side. I know, Jared, you didn't have any duties, but in D1, West Bloomfield held Grand Blanc to just 1 point in the first quarter, cruised to a 30-point win in D1. D2, Detroit Edison held Ann Arbor Father Gabriel Richard to only 3 fourth quarter points, 41-43. They picked up the win. In D3, Arbor Prep picked up the state championship, and in D4, Janessa Eagle scored 25 points over the final couple quarters, finishing with 27 to help Ishpeming to their first finals title, 73-54 over Kingston, a team that was in the finals for the first time. It's always great when both the boys and girls can finish up at Breslin. There's neat storylines. It's good basketball, and it puts a nice capper on the season.
The big story was the Davis twins for West Bloomfield. Honestly, the big game was the semifinal versus Rockford, where time ticking down, 2 seconds left, right as the buzzer sounded, they one of the twins, India or Summer, launched a prayer from like Steph Curry range, banked it in to send the game to overtime versus Rockford, who Rockford beat West Bloomfield in the championship game in a great game last year. So that was almost like the LSU versus Iowa type matchup in the state. And then obviously, like you said, West Bloomfield coasted to the title in the championship versus Grand Blanc. So yeah, it's a fun matchup. It's a fun weekend. Obviously, like you said, every year they do it right at the Breslin Center.
They do.
They really do. So no complaints there.
Also, I want to say congratulations. We've talked about her before. New Lothrop freshman Caitlin Wendling was named the Argus Press, as we call it, Miss Basketball. She averaged 15.3 a game, 5.5 rebounds, helped lead them to a 20-8 record in regional championship. And again, only a freshman, so the future is bright. First time a freshman been named the Argus Press Player of the Year, so that's pretty amazing. Also on the first team, Ovid Elsie's Evelyn Cole and Ava Bates. Morris's Aubrey Rogers, who was the Argus Press Player of the Year last year, is also on the first team. Owasso sophomore Danica Dwyer and Duran's Izzy Koneski, also first teamers. And finally, in track and field, as we're finally getting to the spring sports, Saginaw Valley State had their indoor invitational. Chesaning had 3 first-place finishes. Boys 4x300 relay. Zach Garno, Truman Danik, Zach Harlan, and Caleb Walker. Junior Eric Brancic finished first in the high jump at 6'2", and on the girls' side, Michaela Reber took home first-place honors in the high jump, also clearing 4.8. Weather today, it's gloomy, cold, windy, not conducive to spring sports. No. That's just a little bit of the problem we have in Michigan. Baseball teams are going to be out there. Can you imagine hitting that baseball with the aluminum bat? There's going to be some stingers out there early on in the season.
It brings back the memories of when baseball season started up in Michigan, because half of your practices were in the gym because the field was either covered in snow or it was muddy, nasty, just disgusting. So you're practicing baseball in the gym, which just doesn't make sense at all, to try and take grounders off of the gym floor. So you're dealing with that. And then if you can get outside, it's still 35 degrees or 40 degrees. So you're just freezing cold, standing there out in the field. Like, what am I doing right now?
Honestly, if I was going to change, if I was like MHSA commissioner, that would be probably my number one change, is adjusting the baseball schedule. It's funny. Every year they spend all this time putting together a schedule. They end up canceling the first 10 games.
Mm-hmm.
If it was me, I would almost kind of like a very long spring training, and then you have probably play 6 games a week. Probably every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or something like that, where you're once the season starts, you're almost like an MLB schedule where you're playing games every day, and double headers on all those games. So that's what I would do. It makes no sense how they do it. I know at the end of the year, there's not really much else you can do. It's just kind of the state we're in, but that's one small tweak I would make.
Yeah. I agree with you on that. I mean, and you could even elongate the season a couple more weeks if you wanted to. I think they end right now. The baseball and softball finals are like right around June 19th. Run it up to July 1st if you have to. Just have some good weather. Even the seniors, I don't think they'd mind coming back and continuing playing ball, if they have to continue on to the tournament. So
Right.
that's probably the one change they should do is exactly do something with the spring sports, especially baseball and softball. All right, let's wrap up this podcast with a quick little Tedertainment Tonight right after this. All right, guys, I don't have a whole heck of a lot, but I one more time want to throw in. I finally made it through Lord of the Rings 2, and I've got the third one to look forward to. Well, there's been basketball and stuff. I haven't had time,
Right.
but I did want to tell you, and it's good, and I will say this one more time. The comparison that I see between that and some of what I watched on Game of Thrones, I think Game of Thrones ripped them off a little bit. Whoever
100%.
wrote that.
In the battle, right? The battle.
Oh, the battle! That last battle in the
Towers was literally right out
one.
of Battle of the Bastards.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So
this just adds to. I don't need to watch Game of Thrones. I've already seen it. I don't even need to put the time in and watch Game of Thrones. Thank you for clarifying that for me.
That's fair enough. That's what we're here to keep you straight.
I will say Twin Towers was always my favorite. The first one of Lord of the Rings, good. This isn't no spoilers. Twin Towers was always my favorite. The third one you have to watch because you have to see how things come together. But I always remember Twin Towers was so good.
Yeah, it was really good, especially that battle scene at the end. It was incredible.
Right. Well, if you think about that movie, that's when you have Smeagol is on his quest with Frodo and Samwell, and awesome battle at the end. So, I think our listeners are probably excited for when the Lord of the Rings chats. That's what I thought maybe you were going to say today, but apparently we got at least one more when you finally finish the story. So
I'll probably hold it off for 3 or 4 weeks down the road by the time I get to it. So maybe they'll forget about it. I did watch one other good series on HBO again, True Detective. It was True Detective Night Country. It's the 4th season of that series. It takes place in Alaska. Jodie Foster is in it. She's really good. It had a very interesting plot as it takes place with 8 men from a research station up in Alaska where it's dark every day when this thing is filmed. They disappear, and it's a mystery in what happened to them. So I'd give that one at least a 2.7. It was good. Oh, wow. Jodie Foster was really fun to watch. And again, the True Detective series, nothing is held up to the first one with McConaughey and Harrelson, but it's still worth a watch.
Because some of my friends that have watched every season of that said this was, I think it's because, like you said, the first season set the bar so high for that series. Some people told me that they didn't like this season at all. Jodie Foster was good, but they just, maybe it's because that first season set the bar so high. But when you see who else was in this season, it's like, and it's on HBO, it's got to at least be pretty good. So maybe that'll be worth a watch.
It's worth a watch. I can see where some of the complaints are coming, but if you stick with it and really give it some thought, I think it's worth a watch. I will say that the ending, I won't give anything away, but it was a bit baffling. I'll just leave it at that. You have to definitely think about it afterwards for a while.
Well, that doesn't sound like a good review. That doesn't sound fun. I will say the setting of it being in Alaska, where it's essentially 24 hours of nighttime, that's a freaky setting for something like that to be going down. So I appreciate that.
That would be creepy. I watched on Max. I don't know if you've seen this one, Ted, but it's true crime, three-part little docu-series. It was done by the person who did The Last Dance. So, done very well. Murder in Boston.
No.
Yeah, I think you would really enjoy this one. Like I said, 3 parts. I think each episode's 50 minutes.
Okay.
So you can watch it pretty quickly. It's about you probably remember this story. It was in the late 80s. So obviously I was very young. Jared wasn't around, but there were some murders that happened in Boston, the Stewart murders. It was a pregnant lady got murdered, not to give many details away, and then it just spiraled into a huge investigation, and it's a very deep look and a very, pretty sad look into the race issues that, were going on back then, especially in the city of Boston. You always hear about, that what has gone on in Boston. And it goes into, again, man, all of these shows, just how police so many times just drop the ball with investigations or the weird stuff that they do, shady investigations, or how they pin stuff on people. Even there, how the media played a role in how things were covered. And like I said, just 3 parts done really well, and a really interesting story, and sad also. But I would definitely highly recommend that if you like true crime type stuff.
I do.
Yeah. So yeah, it's on Max. Like I said, 3-parter, Murder in Boston.
All right.
Highly recommend that one.
Sounds like a winner. My wife will definitely watch that with me. So I'm always looking for those.
Yeah. Have you guys, the big one that everyone's talking about? I'm curious if Jared, well, obviously you're on vacation, Jared, but if either of you guys are going to watch the Nickelodeon documentary, have you guys seen people talking about that, or?
Yeah. So
is that the one with some pedophilia or something going on?
Yeah.
It's one of those that it tells the true story of what happened at Nickelodeon.
Mm-hmm.
It's messed up,
I
man.
Might watch it.
I saw my girlfriend Liz watched it on the way down to Florida, actually, and so I was kind of like looking over her shoulder every few minutes to kind of watch parts of it. It's messed up. It's unbelievable the amount of weirdos that were kind of running that place. Drake Bell is kind of the main character in it, who has starred in Drake and Josh, which is one of my, still to this day, really one of my top 5 all-time favorite shows. I love that show so much. So it kind of when you rewatch, I don't rewatch it, but if I rewatch episodes of that show, it's has a dark feeling to it now. Now that you see what kind of went down, it's terrible. I don't know. It's something that sits with you for a while. It's kind of unbelievable how these things happen, but you get why. It's Drake Bell, his story. It's he gets told by this casting guy or this casting director or producer, whatever his role was. This guy ended up being put in jail by Drake Bell. Basically the guy to give him that role at Drake and Josh is oh, you have to do this, you have to do that, or guess what? I'm gonna make it so you never make it in this industry. It's pretty clear how these things kind of can happen, and it's just messed up.
Yeah.
Well, then all the stuff that happened. Amanda Bynes is the saddest story. It's all very sad, but she's one of the big ones. Everything that's happened with her since being a megastar there for a while, so she's one of the main ones. I haven't watched it. It kind of your reaction too, Ted. My wife and I were oh, it might be interesting, but also kind of sick, and almost totally sick. You said, Jared, it kind of sticks with you if you watch it. So we've kind of been on the fence if we're going to watch it or not.
What network's that on again?
Netflix, I believe.
Netflix.
Quiet on the Set.
I think it's on Hulu also.
Okay, you would know where it's at probably better, but I think it's called Quiet on the Set.
All right. Kind of fitting nowadays, the latest news from yesterday. Again, we're recording this on Tuesday. Did you see the Sean Combs raid of his house and what he's alleged to be involved in, sex trafficking and everything else? We'll hear more about that story for sure.
Yeah. I like that you called him Sean Combs.
Yeah, because P. Diddy, whatever. He goes by so many different names, right? What would you call him? What would your go-to be, Jared?
P. Diddy.
Is he P. Diddy to you too, man?
You were saying I actually like how you said his full name. Let's start calling him that. He doesn't deserve to be called P. Diddy anymore.
Right.
What a weirdo. There's a lot of weirdos, man. I don't even know the full story. That's one of those things I don't really want to dive into. I never understood why he was so popular, really, in the first place. He's got a couple great songs. I'll Be Missing You is a good one. Whatever the song's called, Can't Stop Me Now or something like that's another good one by him as well. But outside of that, I've never understood the big deal with this guy. And it's you learned he's was mad at Justin Bieber for not hanging out with him when he was 10 or 12 years old. It's he's just a weirdo. I hope he gets what he deserves.
Maybe there's more behind the story when you say it that way. 10 to 11 years old.
Yeah, exactly. It's what was going on with this freaking psychopath?
Yeah. I don't know if you guys saw it too. Whatever he did in his life, he is very successful. His house is one of the most impressive mansions I've ever seen. When they had the helicopter fly over, it's gigantic. And
he was obviously huge in the 90s and in rap and everything, and then he became a huge producer. He had a ton of shows on MTV back then, like reality TV show type thing, Find the Next Rapper or find, he put together like a band, and he had all these shows. And I think obviously he made money through his music, but I think as a producer is probably where he's made obviously the piles of money. But who knows how else he's made money and what else has gone on behind the scenes. I'm sure we're going to find out more, but it's just a shame. I wasn't necessarily like a big fan of his, but that was when I grew up. He was huge when I grew up. Everyone knew everything that he did. It's just, you can't, it's almost like you can't put anything past anyone these days. Like what? All this stuff that's coming out, Nickelodeon's getting ruined. And, everyone, all of us kids grew up watching Nickelodeon and these shows. And now,
it's so sad. I mean, it keeps you on your toes being a young father, with 2 young kids. I mean,
right.
You just gotta have your head on a swivel out there and on what's going on in the world, and I guess it fits the moniker with Combs and everything else. Hollyweird, man. There's just him and Epstein and all these. I mean, who knows what goes beyond the scenes?
And this is only the stuff that's like been uncovered, man.
I know,
right?
It's crazy.
There's a lot of weird stuff that's probably been covered up.
Yeah,
probably. I'm trying to become some good serious, but it's almost like you don't want to know. It would ruin all these, like like you said, Hollyweird. Scary way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jared, we're gonna get out of here. What do you got on the agenda the next couple days down on spring break?
I think today's just kind of a relaxing at the beach day. We've been kind of running around, hustling, bustling the last 3 days. So I think today is like kind of where it's like you almost need a vacation during your vacation. Like let's just chill. Oh, one thing I gotta say, give me 30 seconds to rant on this. The Lakeland spring training game was great. Holy shit, they have no idea how to park. What the parking situation? It made it literally made me want to rip my eyeballs out. It felt like we were trying to park for 45 minutes. Getting out, we literally sat for 45 minutes before we even could start moving in the pullout line. Like, what is going on? They need to figure that out there down in Lakeland, for the love of God.
Yeah, they only got that one way in and one way out, right?
Yeah, it's like, what are we doing? And the cops are doing nothing. They're not even like waving people through or anything. It was amateurish, and I guess it's like Lakeland's literally right in the middle of this like neighborhood. But that's your one thing. Can you guys really not, maybe bulldoze a house, make another exit way out one way, and like figure this out? It was like unbearable. I love the actual game, but I don't think I'll be back because of that.
One quick thing. I know we're running long. We're signing off. I've been wanting to bring up, and now's a good time with Jared having gone to a game. Ted, have you ever done the thing? I forget what the official name is of it, but it's at Tiger Spring Training where you can go and basically be a Tiger for a day, where you get a uniform, you get to practice with the team, you get to meet all the legends, you get to, I think, even play in
fantasy camp.
Yeah, fantasy camp. That seems like something. I mean, I would like to do that, but that seems like right up your alley. Have you ever done that?
I never have. I actually had kind of thought about it back 20 years ago. I'm a little past my prime to even be a part of that now. But it's a cool thing, and former Tigers put it on. Jim Price was big in it before he passed away. Yeah, it's a neat thing. And you're right. I had thought about it. It would have been something cool to participate in, but never did it.
Yeah.
I'll say, like, you'd be now at this point in your career, it's like you would be the guy broadcasting the game. It's like, I don't think you could be, rounding third on a triple, or, on a home, I'm inside the park or home run. So
no.
I think you'd be calling the game.
I value my hamstrings too much. I'll tell you that. All right, fellas, another fun one. Thanks for checking in on spring break, Jared. You're dedicated. We love it. I want to thank everybody out there, including Memorial Healthcare's Wellness Center. They're our marquee sponsor. Talk to a rep or go online, see what discounts are available for membership. Get healthy, get in shape. Details at memorialhealthcare.org. Also want to thank our other great partners. They include AZee Branding Solutions, Jacobs Insurance Agency, Kori Shook and Associates Real Estate Services, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, and Success Group Mortgage and Servicing. Peace and love, everybody. Be kind. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.